Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn, aka Mental MacGyver. I provide concierge high performance support and coaching to executives, founders, celebrities, and athletes. With me today, I have Jim Lee. He's a financial futurist at StratFi. He has 30 years experience in the financial world and is the author of the book Foresight Investing, a complete guide to finding your next great trade. I have Todd Karges. He has a background in project management and building agile development mindsets. He is a transformation and change management practitioner and a leadership development coach. And I have Eric Jackson. He is the founder and CEO of Element 47, a branding, marketing, advertising agency based in Nashville, Tennessee. The question I have today, what is the difference between talent and genius? Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, you always have such interesting questions here. And when I look at this, I kind of think that talent is the rate at which existing things or skills are learned or done, and that genius is the rate at which new things are learned or done.
Okay. Todd, what about you?
Well, it's interesting because I hadn't considered that approach. All I could really, because I don't have a definition, all I can really offer is how it impacts me. And talent is like, talent doesn't give me an ick factor. It almost kind of makes me feel like there's still room for more. But the people that I've met, at least the self-described geniuses, often don't have that room for more. And I wonder if something's there.
Okay. Eric?
Talent for me is something that maybe borders on passion. And as an example, I love to play guitar. I have learned how to play guitar over the years and gotten better at it. Am I a genius? No. I've met people who pick a guitar up and just skyrocket. And I think there's something innate about genius. And I don't know that we can put our finger on what it is.
Yeah.
For me, there was something about talent being something you're good at, something you're able to do and get better at. Like Jim said, you get better at it, where genius is something that can strike you in a moment. And I think about the definition from the way past, from history, where genius wasn't something you are, it's something you have, and it's transitory, almost like it's a download you get. And if you don't do something with it, it goes away, you lose it.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Well, it's interesting that sometimes you have genius and sometimes you don't, And I think to Todd's point, you can never call yourself a genius. Other people can do that, but you can't call yourself that. That doesn't go down well. Yeah.
If you were to say you were good at something, what would make you say, I'm talented at this?
So I did an interview with a guy who's getting a master's degree yesterday, and he had 4 questions for me about marketing. I didn't prepare. I didn't think about it. I went in and talked and had him nodding, and he gave me feedback and was like, yeah, I never thought about it in that way before. And I didn't come out of the womb understanding marketing, but I have over the years honed this talent. I'm not going to say that I'm genius, but that to me is talent, being able to simply express what you know and to be able to relate it to other people in a way that they can understand. And I guess that's a communications talent.
Yeah. What's coming to me when you say that, Eric, is the concept of unconscious competence, but within the context of a complex topic.
Yes.
Right. Like, sometimes we think of unconscious competence in terms of riding a bicycle or driving a car. And I don't know that I describe my ability to do those things as a talent, but certainly in a complex environment, I may be able to do the same thing in project management, for example. And I hadn't really thought of that as a talent because it's not really something I like doing very much anymore.
And there's also sort of almost a distinction between talent and skill. And talent may show the innate ability to obtain a skill, but sometimes you can have skill without having talent, and that just comes with work. That just comes with doing it.
I'm also wondering talent versus experience. So, and I'm noticing that I feel like talent is something you do. maybe it's ride a bike, or I don't know, play a sport, or play a guitar. Though that sounds like talent, whereas genius feels more intellectual to me. And I have a brother who is extremely talented athlete. He's one of these guys you can make up a game that benefits you and that it goes to your strengths, and within 3 rounds he'll beat you at it. He's just that talented of an athlete. Whereas genius feels more intellectual to me. Is that true?
That's a good one.
One of the things that came to mind when you introduced the topic was I think of genius in terms of being able to see around corners. Those people tend to be able to put together a lot of information almost unconsciously and come to conclusions that other people simply are not able to come to.
Yeah, what's coming to me when you say that, Eric, is a facility within the uncertainty that goes along with not knowing what's next and just being able to navigate it.
And to create new things, maybe even at times that nobody's ever considered before.
Right.
And how does that balance in with Jim's point of skill or even experience?
I would tend to think that skill and experience will reveal genius over time. If you add experience and learn skills with an already innate genius, and that's really what catapults people.
I see you all thinking.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and it sort of goes to this idea of where do our ideas come from? And do ideas exist outside of us physically in some sort of shared conceptual field? I've had some of those moments where, for example, my first book felt like I was downloading it like 5 minutes, and it took me a year to write. And it didn't even really feel like my book. It was an idea that just needed to be expressed at the time, and I happened to be convenient when picking up the signal.
And I've read about that, where people say they had an idea, they had a genius come to them, and they started working on it, but then life got in the way and they set it aside and basically were like, I'll come back to you later. And when they came back to it later, the idea was just gone, like it no longer existed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that makes it feel like a genius is something that you said download, something you just get, where it comes like out of the ether or something. Like it's like poof, you have it, or poof, it's gone. Whereas talent, I feel like, is something you're good at and you can grow, or you can get away from it or come back to it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. And it's frustrating as heck, right? Because you're really not in control of your own ideas at this point. They kind of have an agenda of their own.
This conversation is making me dislike the word genius more, though, and that's kind of cool.
Eric, what do you think about the idea of genius coming and going?
Well, I think that the genius ideas maybe come and go, but obviously I'm a fan of Jason Isbell. If you guys are not familiar with this guy, one of the greatest songwriters of our generation, and I consider him to be a genius. The guy is able to tell a story in ways that just amaze me, that he's able to paint pictures with words. And not every songwriter is even close to his capacity to do that. Now, he grew up around Muscle Shoals, Alabama. He had family that were musicians, and he went to school in Memphis to study creative writing, and then went back to Muscle Shoals and worked in one of the famous studios in Muscle Shoals as a songwriter, and then was asked to join a band that was already existing, that had a pretty good following, and immediately started to write songs that are still some of their most popular. So I think that he would be an example of someone who grew up at this environment that encouraged maybe something that was innate in him, and it just developed and developed, and now he's at the top of his craft. So I think there are opportunities where you have the right set of circumstances, and those circumstances just amplify what your God-given talents already are.
And I agree with what Jim said about you shouldn't call yourself a genius. Other people get to decide if you're a genius or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great place to end a 10-minute conversation. So thank you so much for doing this with me. And I look forward to speaking to each of you again very soon.